Hi, Anna. Are you there?
Hi, everyone.
Hey, it worked.
It
This is
works.
our very first
Congratulations. I
Teams
heard this.
interaction.
Perfect.
Do you want to see if you could share your screen or it should work fine, you think?
Sure, let's test it
Test
out.
everything out ahead of time.
Yeah. Let me just pull it up.
It's weird because we don't have a camera close to us. There's only the one at the end of the room.
That's okay.
I'm Rob, who you've been talking to.
Oh, nice to meet you,
Becky's our
Rob.
chair.
Hi, Becky.
Nice to see you. This is our, as Rob said, this is our inaugural use of Teams, so this is something
Yeah,
special.
so it's
Oh, excellent. All right, I'm going to try to share my screen. And then let's see.
yeah, perfect.
Awesome.
Love it.
Okay, great. So I'll just yeah, it looks like it's changing. It's kind of nice that I can see what you're seeing.
Yes, but we're gonna leave everything like this and not touch anything. If you want to do the same, you're welcome to, and we'll.
Yeah, we don't
Sure,
usually start for 10 minutes.
Yes,
but-
we have 10
Yeah.
minutes.
10 minutes before 10 minutes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Don't touch anything.
So if you want, do you have that at home, that email with the directions? Okay, so I can keep that.
Great. So I'll mute myself and then let you all do your thing and I'll just be on standby.
the first time we're independently using this system without a trainer here with us. So it's working, which is great. We have a guest this evening doing a presentation online. She's already here. I thought we'd put her on first so she can finish hers and we can go on through our agenda. So how do we click Anna on? There
I
she
think
goes. Okay.
I think I click myself on. Nice to meet you, everyone. I'm gonna take a second and share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna move you all. I have actually like 3 screens, so I'm gonna
Ann,
move you.
It's Rob. I'm just gonna jump in and just introduce what we're doing.
Yeah,
You'll
that
have to
sounds
do the
great.
details on your own introduction, but Anna's joining us from the Nature Conservancy as part of our ongoing education and resource sessions. I had spoken to Sarah, the director of conservation and maybe even stewardship at the Nature Conservancy, as we've reached out, and also we are possibly scheduled with the Society for Protection in New Hampshire Forests next month if time allows. And as part of our engaging in our open space efforts and prioritization for our open space bond, Sarah had suggested Anna come tonight, who she could give more detail, but basically you're the data scientist, GIS guru, really to tell us a little bit about how the Nature Conservancy operates in the state and particularly in our area. And most importantly, what we've been hearing from everyone is there's one plan, the Coastal Conservation Plan, that is really gearing all the work of all the agencies in the area, including Fish and Game, SELT, SPNIF, the Great Bay Resource Partnership. So besides giving us a brief overview of TNC, Anna's going to go through the Coastal Conservation Plan with us, and also their Resilient and Connected Network, which directs TNC's work more specifically, to give us an idea of how we could be looking at prioritization in our own town relative to this plan. So thank you, Anna, for joining us, and any other introduction of yourself, please go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone for having me. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to speak with all of you about sharing our science. And that's one of our objectives at the Nature Conservancy, is to share our science with dedicated folks like you all at conservation commissions, to provide support and also knowledge of like what the conservation prioritizations are out there to help guide your work. So I'm very excited about that. I'm Anna Ormiston. I'm the GIS manager and spatial scientist at TNC New Hampshire. And I've been with the organization for about 6 years, and I actually was one of the lead spatial scientists on the Coastal Conservation Plan. So I'm really excited to revisit that plan. It's been a couple years since we've published it. And in addition to sharing that science with you, I'm also going to share the guiding science that we use at TNC as a whole, which is called the Resilient and Connected Network. All right, okay, awesome. So just an overview of what the presentation will be today. I'll introduce to you guys to the Nature Conservancy. We're a global organization. We also work nationwide, and then in our role in New Hampshire, and then our role in the Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership. I'll talk about the TNC priorities. So that's really the Resilient Connected Network, the Appalachians Global Focus Area, and the Coastal Conservation Plan. And then the Coastal Conservation Plan overview and what went into the plan, and focusing on Brentwood. And then I just have a couple of questions that was shared with me in advance that I'll answer, and then I'll open it up to any other questions that you all have. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Awesome. All right, so the Nature Conservancy at a glance. The map on the left shows all the places around the world where TNC programs touch down. And so we hit all 50 states in the US, and we work in 76 countries and territories. There's about 25 permanent staff in New Hampshire. And when it's the summer season, it bumps up to like 30 staff, depending on our internships and seasonal work. We've helped protect nearly 3,000 acres in New Hampshire, and today we own and manage 27,000 acres across 31 preserves. And our footprint touches down all over in New Hampshire, and that's what the map is showing on the right. So the green dots that you see are TNC preserves, and then we have like orange triangles and red squares. Those are other TNC interests like conservation easements and deed restrictions. And our programs really focus on climate resilience, freshwater restoration, and marine resource management. We also have 4 global focal areas that include the Appalachians in North America, the Amazon, Tanzania, and Indonesia. So here are some guiding principles that allow you to understand how TNC approaches our work to maximize our impact in the areas that need us most. So we recognize that we are under a dual crisis of biodiversity loss and also the climate crisis, and we need to address both to achieve our mission. And then science guides us where we focus, so where we work on the ground, but equity guides how we work. So we're really mindful about how we work with communities, and that changes based on what's going on in those communities and who's leading projects already. And we really strive to build resilience through natural and human systems through our conservation approach, and we strive to achieve multiple benefits through these actions. All right, so what is TNC's role in the Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership? We're a principal partner, and just a brief overview of this partnership. I'm sure you all are very familiar with this. It's a collaboration of conservation organizations in the coastal region that promotes landscape scale land conservation and stewardship. It really provides like this blueprint or like shared vision of what conservation and stewardship looks on this landscape. And so the land conservation and stewardship goals include water quality, wetland ecosystems, migratory bird populations, other really important habitats, working landscapes that include agricultural resources, conservation land connectivity, and climate resiliency, in addition to recreation and educational opportunities and conservation stewardship. So on the left, I just have a list of the principal partners that play a role in the partnership. But the partnership works with community partners in addition to these principal partners. And I can share this slideshow afterwards, but I have a couple of links embedded that are great resources for all of you to look at. So the Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership hosts 2 grant programs. And I'm sure you've probably either submitted a grant or received a grant from one of these programs, but that they include land protection transaction grant programs. So that's really focusing on acquiring new fee land or conservation easements within the coastal watershed communities, and that includes New Hampshire and Maine. And the eligible applicants for that include land trusts and municipalities. And then this is a fairly new grant program. The Stewardship Grant Program offers grants to assist in stewardship costs for permanently protected conservation lands in the Great Bay watershed. So that includes the New Hampshire communities only. And that's really focusing on habitat management, existing trail maintenance, property project planning, and natural resource inventory projects. It's really important to make sure there's funding for stewardship costs to maintain these protected spaces. So I'm really excited that this program's up and running. And eligible applicants include anyone who owns, a fee land for conservation or a conservation easement holder, and then municipalities, state and federal agencies, and land trusts. And both of the grant programs are funded by the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation through the Great Bay 2030 initiative. And the Nature Conservancy serves as a fiscal and administrative agency. And I actually make the maps for these grant programs. All right, so I must admit I'm like 5 months pregnant, and I feel like baby's like really pushing up on my lungs. So I have to make sure I'm like sitting up straight so I get enough airflow when I do this. So anyways, this is switching gears now. This is the guiding science for the Nature Conservancy. It's the Resilient Connected Network. And that's what we're seeing on this map. That's the green swoopy, blobs. And this is a continental scale projection. And so what's really, really exciting is that we now have science that can tell us where areas are predicted to be resilient to climate change, and that can be like the refugia for biodiversity as climate changes and biodiversity range shifts. And this science was developed by the Center for Resilient Conservation Science team. This team is really a massive team of like 7 really brilliant scientists at the Nature Conservancy, and they worked with over 289 scientists and other state agencies and NGOs and academics across the country to develop this science. And it took about 10 years to get this science out. And it's really guiding where TNC works. And we share the science with partners like you to inform what's going on, what are our priorities, but also see if this science can help guide work in other organizations like this Conservation Commission. All right, so I mentioned a global focus area, and that's what this map is showing. So as you can see, a whole bunch of the RCN is located in the Appalachians area. And that's really exciting because it touches down in New Hampshire. And it's this critical connection between, the southern central Appalachians to the northern parts of the Appalachians and Resilient Connected Network. So TNC is focusing on a lot of projects in this region. Right here, I think you can see my cursor, right? Yeah. And so that's where our work is being guided to using the RCN. I do want to make note that there is some RCN that is still existing in the Seacoast area, all the way down to, Plum Island. This landscape here is highly developed in the Seacoast area and south. And so that's why we're not seeing as much RCN, but it's still important because there is this connection from the Seacoast all the way up into the Appalachians that is viable and important for us to think about when we're conserving for lands that are resilient and connected. All right, so this map just shows where the coastal watershed in New Hampshire touches down with the RCN. And then if we zoom in, we have Brentwood right here. And I'll do another zoom in, but it looks like there's a pretty big significant piece of RCN there. So here's a map of Brentwood showing conservation lands in green. And then the Resilient Connected Network is what we're seeing that's like gray transparent. And where they overlap, you can see dark green. And so in this section right here in the southeastern part of Brentwood, you can see that a lot of that larger RCN area is protected, but there are some areas that are still not protected. And then I guess like going back to what I had said about how this is a continental scale conservation plan, we can use the coastal watershed conservation plan to supplement connectivity. There was a localized wildlife connectivity analysis that was done just for the coastal watershed that really mirrors the objectives of what this resilient connected landscape model does, but it just does it at a local scale. And so we'll see by the end of this presentation how that uh, coastal watershed conservation plan really helps connect areas in the watershed. All right, so our next science that we'll dive into is the New Hampshire's Coastal Watershed Conservation Plan. It was updated in 2021. And I'll provide a quick overview and what went into the spatial plan without really getting into the nitty gritty detail. And then we'll look at Brentwood. So this map on the right shows us priority agricultural resources and conservation focus areas. The focus areas are the purple blobs on the map, and then the yellow smaller areas are the priority agricultural resources. And these are the two outputs that we produced for the conservation plan update in 2021. All right, so this table really mirrors the focal conservation target that the Great Bay Partnership has when it comes to their vision in the landscape. And then on the left, we have the individual data sets that went into this plan. So this is pretty comprehensive. I won't walk through all of this, but essentially each input data set kind of tackles or represents the focal conservation targets that the Great Bay Partnership wants to achieve. And so that includes wildlife habitat, migratory bird habitat, landscape connectivity, climate resiliency, water quality and quantity, and then working landscapes. And there's multiple data sets that represent, multiple conservation targets. So this is a way easier way to think about what went into this conservation plan. And so these are the key conservation plans on the left. We have a wildlife connectivity. This is what I was describing as a good supplement for this region when it comes to wildlife connectivity and habitat blocks. Since the RCN is this continental scale, this is more localized and shows the regional connectivity and the importance for the watershed here. And then we have water quality and climate adaptation. So, looking at public water supply, that's represented in the yellow areas. Flood storage and risk mitigation, that's the purple areas located on this map, and then pollutant attenuation. So areas that can absorb pollution and help clean up. So, and then we have our state wildlife action plan, and this is really looking at prime wildlife habitats and adding that into our final product. And then the resilient connected network, like I showed earlier. All right, so when we put all of those key conservation plans together, we get a lot of area that is, important to protect. It's actually this pink map on the right, those pink areas, that's actually 70% of the coastal watershed. And so when we were developing this plan, we recognized that we can't protect everything, right? And that we need a prioritization to create a set of focal areas, like the areas that represent the most important priorities within the watershed to protect. And we worked with the Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership a whole set of technical advisors to, you know, basically pare down areas that are the most important to protect in this watershed. And it took about a year and a half to develop what I'll walk through us next. All right, so please don't black out while you look at this slide. What we're looking at is really the backbone, or like the skeleton to the final product, like how we get from the pink map from the previous slide to our final product. And so essentially we took a bunch of different input layers, those 4 maps that I was showing on the previous slide, and we weighted them or prioritized them and then combined them together and did a bunch of different thresholds to come up with a prioritization. And so this is what is the final product for the conservation focus areas. And so you can see on the left, we have these purple areas, and it's not just like singular blobs that are disconnected. They're all connected with wildlife corridors. And I think that's pretty unique when it comes to conservation plans in the coastal watershed. We haven't had a conservation plan to incorporate this in addition to all the other priorities that we set. So it's pretty unique because there's this connectivity component. And then the gray areas on the map are already permanently protected land. And so this table is just a breakdown of how our different input layers are represented in these purple areas. So I'll walk through an example. So Connect the Coast prioritized habitat blocks and corridors. That was the first map on this slide right here. So the corridors are pretty unique. We don't have data like that in any other data set that went into this model. And we wanted to make sure that connectivity was like relatively sustained in the final model. So we made sure that 100% of those wildlife corridors would maintain being represented in the output. And that's why there's 100%. And when you're looking at, salt marsh resiliency, it's pretty close to 98% because we know that that's really important in this landscape. When it comes to resilient connected network, we understand that it's not as ubiquitous as some other conservation plans, and it might not really get to representing like the landscape in a way that makes sense because of the continental scale of this plan. And so that's why it's not as highly represented as some of the other input data plans. All right, and so this table just breaks down what is still left that is vulnerable or unprotected. And so the yellow columns show what is vulnerable and unprotected in the whole watershed, so the whole coastal watershed. So 64.4% of the whole watershed still remains unprotected when it comes to these purple areas on the map. If we're just looking at New Hampshire, it's 60.9%. And then Maine is 81.6%. So there's still a lot of work to do. All right, another product of the Coastal Conservation Plan includes priority agricultural resources. And so these are areas in the landscape that are still, represent viable agricultural resources. So they might not be active agricultural areas, but they might have soil that is still good for agriculture, or they might be an active farm. So there's a different mix of what's going on in those yellow areas. So within the watershed, 80.5% 5% of the agricultural resources are still unprotected. Okay, so now we're back to Brentwood. And so this map shows in purple those coastal conservation focus areas. In yellow, those are the agricultural priority resources. And then the green hatched mark is the existing conservation land, and that's permanently conserved land. And then any like outline with like a gray outline is just like parcel for your reference. I'll just let you guys take that in for a second before I go to the next slide. So here, for example, I think there was some overlap with the RCN, but then we didn't have like a connection here. But with that wildlife corridor data, it provides this connectivity piece, the landscape that then connects to the town over. And likewise on this side. I was kind of curious just to see what the resilient connected network would look like, you know, on top of the coastal conservation areas. And so the dark gray that we're seeing here is the resilient connected network. You can see how it kind of gets fragmented in this section. And then, but the coastal conservation focus area captures the whole connectivity through. And that's why I stress that this plan, the coastal conservation plan, is a really good tool to use for the coastal watershed because of that like localized, regionally specific model that went into it. So some final products that are available to all of you. There's a final conservation plan report. And the big summary is that like an acre a day is how quickly we're losing lands, natural lands on the coastal watershed to development. And, you know, there's also this point where like a lot of these communities depend on clean drinking water and flood reduction. And we can achieve those through using these prioritized lands that were identified through the conservation plan. In addition to the conservation report, there are town level maps, watershed scale maps, and then you can view the data on the New Hampshire Coastal Viewer. There's also a website that is specific to this plan. It's called Connect to Protect. And I have the link here and I can share it with all of you, but it's pretty fantastic. There's like a whole bunch of resources that you can access along with these town maps and watershed maps. You can access previous webinars and just like other resources that are available. So just to wrap up, you know, would TNC work with Brentwood on a local project in town or refer to a local land trust? It really depends on the project. Ultimately, we want the coastal conservation plan to succeed. So whatever we can do to work with the local land trust, we will. But depending on what the project is, we're flexible. So it's really a project by project basis. And then what other resources can we provide Brentwood? We can provide technical assistance, so grant support, writing letters of support for a project, and GIS mapping support. So I'll open it up for any questions. Thank you all. If you want to revisit a slide, I'm happy to go back.
Yes. Anna, if you could send me the slide deck or the conservation at brentwoodnh.gov, which was on some of our emails, that would be great.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, send it
Awesome.
to both. That way you don't have to copy me.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
So we've heard the Coastal Watershed Conservation Plan, all those groups listed in the Great Bay Partnership.
Yeah.
Is this the primary plan that all those groups are using? And does that also translate to the funding sources are they also aware of this plan and focused on that plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yes, the whole Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership charged TNC with updating the Coastal Conservation Plan. And so, like, they were part of the committee that was behind, creating the conservation plan. They like each person from like each principal partner had a representative from their organization that was on the technical panel that vetted the plan. There were like, I don't know, I want to say there were like at least 9 different iterations of the Coastal Watershed Conservation Plan before we reached the final output. And so it was really helpful to have input from these principal partners. So everyone's bought in. And then the grant programs that I was describing, the conservation plan coastal focus areas, the purple areas on the map, and then the yellow agricultural priority areas on the map, those are the areas that we screen the potential projects that could be funded through these grant programs. We screen them using that data set, those 2 data, whether or not they're in or out for funding. And then there's always like, when you're applying to other grants, like for example, if you were to apply to Drinking Water, Groundwater Trust Fund, or LCHIP, those other grant funders, they score projects that fall in regional plans like this higher than projects that don't fall in plans like this. So that's something to think about too, is to like, while you're like piecing together funding, falling within a regional prioritization like this conservation plan, it will benefit you with other funders besides the Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership funds. Any other questions?
What does the process look like to get TNC support with GIS or data?
Could someone repeat it? I just couldn't hear it that well.
Yeah, I could turn it on. Sorry
cool.
about that.
No problem.
I was just wondering, what is the process of requesting GIS and data analytics support?
Yeah, I
from
think
TNC?
that's a great question. I think what you could do is like, you could send me a direct email. I have my email in this presentation, but I could also chat it to you guys or just send it, like you'll have it when I send the presentation to all of you. But like what I would suggest is that you could email me. I could talk to Sarah Garlick, the conservation director, and we can definitely work something out for whatever, GIS and mapping needs that you have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, like we understand that like we can't protect it all as an organization, and so helping other organizations and partners, achieve their goals is definitely a priority for us.
Thank you, Sarah. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Anna, this was really a great presentation. We appreciate
Sure.
it. I know we got a lot to absorb. We'll look at the slide deck and the other links, which is really great for us to kind of start getting our hands around. So thank you, and please thank Sarah, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. I really appreciate everyone's time, and I'm an open door, so you can just shoot me an email if you have a question or if that like comes to mind afterwards. So,
Thank you again, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. Thank you all. Have a good night.
So she disconnects herself?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all, okay. Thank you. So we're live with the audience out there in the video world. So thank you, Rob, for arranging that. A great presentation, very helpful, and a lot to pursue and follow up on.
And then possibly, we also have the Society for Protection of New Hampshire Forest, possibly in July if
Yeah.
there's room, if not for one of the other months, from their Director of Conservation to hear from them kind of similar thoughts about their priorities and how they can help the town.
Great, so let's thank you again, and we're going to go on to the agenda for this evening. We'll start again. We have a quorum here, so we do not need to vote any alternates, the power to vote, so we're all set with the quorum. So first in your packet is...
Full committee. We have full committee.
We have full committee here, full committee. First in your packet are the May 8th minutes, from our last meeting. So if you have any corrections or additions, I know Rob, you mentioned something, anything
Names
else?
Spelled someplace.
I got it.
Thank you.
These are the same ones I sent you last week, so if you had a chance to look at them. And I want to thank Michelle for serving as the secretary last time and putting these minutes together. Yes, Bob.
The third paragraph says Bruce Stevens commented he has been attending meetings regarding this issue since 2016. Fish were not part of the conversation then. It was a safety issue. It was a dam safety issue. Yeah, not just
So Dan-
safety.
Okay,
But Bruce asked if, he really asked rhetorically if Brentwood would be willing to assist financially to help Exeter fix and maintain the dam, and he made it clear he would not be in favor of that.
yeah,
So the way it's written here, it sounds a little different than I think
Okay.
was his intention.
okay. So that clarity's good, so it's rhetorical question,
Yeah,
off the cuff.
I think so.
Anything else, anyone looking through? No, I see some heads shaking no. So is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Couple of changes there.
Well, if I can't vote on it, I will make the motion.
Can he do that? Can he make a motion? No,
I
No,
wouldn't think so.
no.
no.
And then, sugar finally.
I can make a motion that we accept May 8th meetings, minutes of the meeting.
As amended? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of the
Aye.
motion? Aye.
I abstain.
Okay, so that's 6 to,
6 to nothing with one abstention.
okay. Whatever. So then the next item in your packet is the draft of the minutes from the June 4 public hearing about the bond issue. You all received at the last meeting the language that was on the public notice on the website and posted around town. So if you have any feedback on these minutes from our meeting on June 4, those of you who were here, and I believe it was Matt, Michelle, Rob, I believe, me, and Paul. Yeah. Andy was here too, yes. Andy, Paul, Matt, Michelle, Rob. And we did vote to have Michelle and Rob the authority to vote. So we had a quorum. I do have one addition to change this. Towards the end of the meeting, Select Board Member Jennifer Jones came in to join us to observe and hear our motion, just to be sure we had followed the legal listing, so she should be added to the attendance for this, Matt.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of where.
Meeting.
Just list her as an attendee that joined late.
You said join late, yes.
Okay. Yeah, good addition.
Move to adopt the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Since this was not the full, aye, Rebecca, aye, Matt,
Aye.
aye, Andy, aye, Paul,
That'll
And-
do it.
and
Yeah.
Michelle, yes, okay,
Right. So Paul moved, who seconded?
yep. So it was 6-0.
Who seconded that motion?
I did.
Andy?
Andy?
So it'd be, it was approved 4-0 with 2 abstentions, right? Or 3 abstentions. Is that correct? How many of us were there? Yeah, you abstained, you weren't there, you weren't there, you weren't there, right?
Please wasn't there either.
Groovy.
Yeah.
The select board say it was okay for people that expired to be.
Yes, I'm going to go into that, but I can mention that right now. With the new process for appointing and reappointing members to every commission and committee in town, everyone will have to fill out a statement of interest, and it will be reviewed. But to the pertinent question about those who could vote, the select board approved reappointing Brian Silva as a member and Doug Cowie as an alternate through July 31, 2024. The other terms that had expired or that could expire, those individuals, their forms did not have an end date or no date at all. So they are still legal. Michelle and I have that further in the agenda. Further in the agenda. Yep. Yep. Okay, so thank you. Bills and reimbursements. I need to bring something to your attention again. In preparation to set up materials for the Open Space Committee, I had to do a little purchasing. Went to Rockingham Planning Commission and had 3 copies of the large 2017 map of Brentwood showing the conservation areas printed. Took them to Hobby Lobby. They adhered them to foam core, so they're rigid and they don't crack and peel and get torn. I got a 3-ring binder at Goodwill for $2. I went to Staples to get some alpha dividers for the notebook and Walmart for those dividers. A notebook at Walmart. So it comes to $53.33 in purchases. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I will take this to Jillian now to have a check cut. Thank you very much.
We should probably vote on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm skipping ahead here. Yes. You made a motion. Is there a second? The second was Andy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The vote is 7 yay. 7-0. And no abstentions. Correspondence and notices. This. It's on your agenda as an item. Just to mention that at the planning board meeting last week, Brentwood Fence came to the board asking for doing a proposal to do some landscaping and curb appeal at their property on 125. Work that up. You have in your packet a copy of the summary of the housing survey that was distributed at the meeting. It's the summary of all the comments of our Rockingham Planning Commission survey that was submitted to the town. I think there were about, it says here, 212 responses. You can still find this online, and you can find all the comments online if you want to read that. But this is the summary that was distributed. So this could impact our work on conservation, so you should become familiar with it as they talk about zoning and residential and housing and open space. So I wanted you to have a copy and direct you to look on the website to see if there's any other details you would like to fill yourself up on. So the other thing at the planning board, they're applying for a second grant, I believe, a housing opportunity grant to follow up on their first one, which has to be expended by the end of June. This will be more of a planning grant for zoning, I believe. And the last bit under this correspondence and notices is last month I mentioned that MTI Poly X on Pine Road went to Glen Greenwood, and I was part of a Zoom call. They are planning a 15,000 square foot addition to their facility. And now they've scheduled a pre-application meeting with the planning board on June 20. And they will be coming to Concom on July 10 to do the presentation. So that's flowing along nicely. So we'll have Todd Valentine here from MTI PolyX, and the gentleman from the engineering companies in Western Massachusetts will be in this system, so he will come in remotely. So we'll have another use for this.
Tell me the name of that company again.
The name of the company on Pine Road is MTI PolyX.
MTI
Capital,
PolyX.
and then
Right.
Poly space
X.
EXE.
Got it. Oh, AEXE.
And I think I mentioned the engineering company last time. I didn't put that in my notes this time.
Thanks.
Okay. And I'm still in communication with the Prescott project. They had another commitment on June 12th. They couldn't attend that meeting, so I've corresponded with Brendan Quigley of Gove Engineering and offered July 10 as a chance to come in to do the presentation on the project on 27. Have not heard back, but he's been offered the opportunity, and I've notified Glenn Greenwood too. So that is our offer, so he's aware of what's happening. And I have nothing else on planning board. Nope. Perambulations. Bob Stevens. We're going into old business, which is number 5 on my agenda.
Yeah, I reached out to Exeter Planning and spoke to the administrative assistant for the town administrator, and that's Pam McElroy, who lives here in Brentwood, and she's scheduled it a couple of times since then. We've had some changes, but it's now scheduled for June 20th.
And that's the final one to do of the 4 towns, I believe.
I think so.
Thank you, Bob.
Is that June 20th, you said? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, manual revisions.
Yeah, the manual revision has hit a stall last month when I hit a stall with COVID. And so I never had the small group meetings that I had planned to have. We will do that this coming month, and we should have, as a matter of fact, I'd like to meet with Lisa and Rob within the week if you guys are available. I'll reach out on a specific date.
Michelle?
I'm going to keep it at 3.
Oh, okay.
And then probably separate meeting with Michelle. I don't want to run into any quorum issues. And then, I can meet separately with Michelle and you. And then take all that collective input, circulate it, and then hopefully we'll be as close to final as we can get by next month's meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to, next item is trustee of the trust funds. I'd like to do just a quick report. This is regarding the Forest Management Capital Reserve Fund that was established back in 2006. It was created to follow up on the forest management plan done by Charlie Moreno of Moreno Forestry Associates in 2004. It was initiated with a $5,000 amount of money, and it's grown a little bit. The Three Bearings Investment Company asked if this was still an active fund and should it continue, and Julie Avant, bookkeeper for the trustee of the trust funds, went before the select board on May 21 and described the issue and that it should be retained as a reserve fund, and that Concom may be able to use the projects. If you read this forest management report by Moreno, there are 3 sites mentioned in here where we can use this for various projects, use money out of that capital reserve fund. It could be something for the town forest, which is by Swayze School, something for the rec center property, which is a forest, and what is now Split Rock was called Little River. Some of the types of uses outlined in this report are culverts, trail maintenance, blazing boundaries, logging, or forest maintenance. So that's something to be thinking about, whether we want to access that fund for any of those projects.
Sounds perfect for
Sounds
cleaning up
perfect.
Stevens Field,
Yes.
which is in a Split Rock,
Yes.
Little River.
Yes. Yep. So it's great that this has come before us, so it's revitalized. If anyone would like to do a little reading, you can do that. This is the only copy I was able to find, but we will pursue this and do some planning on this, how to use it for Split Rock, which brings up Split Rock just in a couple of items. So that's the report on trustees of the trust funds. And the select board agreed that that fund should remain and we can use that. Fuller easement, just to pop back for a brief minute onto the June 4 public hearing. As noted in the minutes, Concom did recommend to the select board to seek bonds and notes for a 15-year bond. That's the timing that was in the minutes of the town meeting in the 22nd. It could be no less than 15 years for a bond. And so spoke with Karen. We have preliminary approval for the bond from the bond bank, bond council and the bond bank. And right now, the plan would be, it would cost us $20,000 a year for the first 5 years, $15,000 a year into the budget for the next 10 years at an interest rate of no more than 3.75%. So that was reported last week at select board. So those are the figures.
20K for 5 years, what was the rest of it?
20K for 5 years,
Mhm.
15K for 10 years, and the interest rate is 3.75, no more than 3.75. And there was a little back and forth this week between Karen, the bond counsel, and the bond bank and conservation about the form. There were some typos, et cetera, that have been all cleared up. So I think we're moving forward. Karen, I saw her again this morning. Everything seems to be fine.
And so the select board obviously approved it.
Yes, they
to
did.
move forward.
Because we went to the select board right after the June 4 meeting, presented our resolution or our vote, and they accepted it and voted on it. So it's moving forward. Stevens Field. Some updates on this. I mentioned last time we had a volunteer who's willing to mow the trails May through September. May has already been done. It's Bob Magnuson. He lives in a property close by. And he will mow the field in October depending how wet the field is. So it's a judgment call because you can get stuck. There is a very low point in that field. So he's going to make a judgment call then. Deb Briscoe is aware of all of this. I also met with Wayne Robinson about 2 things. One, reinstalling the gate, which has been taken off of the posts and just set aside. I asked Wayne to go look at that because we're not sure if the posts are stable enough to reinstall it. There may be something loose or needs to be replaced. So he'll take a look at that. And I think we can use the conservation fund for any expenses with that. I'm not sure. I would like to check with that. But we'll see. That would maybe be the 2 posts to replace those. I also mentioned to Wayne about cutting down some of the shrubs that are encroaching on the perimeter, and said he does have equipment that he can deal with some of those, and he'd be willing to go and do that. I also spoke with Bruce Stevens, and he said he would be helpful, and he's also willing to recruit a number of volunteers to help with the fence removal, should that letter have gone through to the Woodman family. I'm not sure of that. I don't have final information on that. So Stevens Field project is moving along, various steps, but it seems to be coming together. Yes, Rob?
So I think it would, before we invest anything in posts or fencing, those are probably originally installed, I would think, by the Woodmans. So it may
That be part of the
good
fence,
to
yes.
have the letter go
Refer.
by where the time period is expired, where they haven't removed it, then the town would have the right to do what it wants.
Right.
Yeah, and that letter went out, right?
I don't know. I've
Okay.
never received confirmation of
Okay.
that. I know that Andy
I know we talked about
Martinovich asked about that, but I haven't heard anything back.
Okay.
I don't know either, so that's following up with Karen.
Mhm.
So I asked Wayne to hold on until this meeting, not to do anything until this meeting, and Bruce as well. So we'll follow up with that. So nothing will be done preemptively. Okay, next item is conservation members and alternate terms update. As I mentioned, responding to Liz's question, Brian and Doug have been reappointed to July 31. The plan with this new process is that all committees' appointments and reappointments will happen in the same time frame, so that it's not scattered throughout the year. It's more efficient. The process will be that everyone needs to fill out a statement of interest form, which is available online, why you would like to participate or join or volunteer for this committee, what expertise or experience or interest you have. All those will be submitted to the town administrator, and copies of those applications will be shared simultaneously with the individual commission or board and the select board, and then there will be a joint meeting between the commission members or chairs and the select board to discuss these statements of interest, and the decision for reappointment and appointments will be made at that meeting.
So when does that all happen? When the terms expire? I mean, each of us are here on staggered terms.
Yes.
So when our
So,
term is
if your
due to expire,
In 24, this will happen to everyone whose term ends in 24. And those.
well, if the terms ended in 24, then that would have been March of 24, they would have already ended.
No, they've re-extended those terms that expired. They did re-extend to July 31. I'm not familiar with what they've done with other committees. I know what they've done with conservation.
Well, that was regarding Doug and Brian.
Right.
All right, so the rest of us have terms through March of various years.
Right.
And for example, my term runs until March of 25.
Right.
I believe yours goes through
March of 25.
March 25, others are various times, so.
March of 26.
Yeah, are you saying that as we approach those dates, that's when those of us whose terms are expiring would have the option to reapply? Or are they asking for a mass reapplication now or at some specific date?
I'm not sure of the
Would
mass
you know, sir?
reapplication.
So, some of this still needs to be developed. To the extent that your term already exists through a date certain.
Then it would run through that date.
Right,
Yes.
so you wouldn't need to apply for.
You would have to reapply to go beyond that date certain.
Right.
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 Okay.
What's unclear to me at the moment is when exactly that will be, because there's discussion about having, all the committee appointments done at one time. When that time might be is up for discussion, so I know you say March 25, so.
Yeah, I can only speak for mine. I don't know when
Right,
everybody
so
else's
there
term
may
ends.
need to be some readjustment of that to a time certain in the year, right? So that March of 25 will actually be
Probably,
Right.
March would be a common thing because that's when elections take place.
Yeah.
So that's
That's what
probably,
they're gonna be doing.
Well, and
Yeah.
so I
It's
don't.
not clear at all.
Yeah,
Why it's
it's
coming up
not
pretty
clear,
fast.
and I don't know the time frame because we haven't had
Yeah.
that discussion yet. But there'll be a set. I think one of the goals is to set a time in the year when everyone will have
Mhm.
the opportunity to apply.
But, yeah, go ahead.
Right, so I think part of that discussion would be to make that adjustment. So if, for example, you're through March of 2025, but then you're talking about a different time.
Okay, but doesn't, I thought that Conservation Commission is established under certain RSAs that call for the staggered terms, right?
Yes,
we
they
were
would,
all
they would
Yeah,
still
that
be
wouldn't
staggered.
Okay, it's
That won't
continued to be
change.
staggered. It's just a matter of the point in time each year where those appointments
Yes.
are made.
Yes.
Okay.
I
So-
don't remember exactly when, it was just two of us, Lisa and myself, who took the oath again, make it official. But no, it was just, it was Lisa and me, just the two of us, put our hands up, and I don't remember when that was, and how long we're good for. I know everyone was staggered.
I
This-
don't know. I would think Becky would have that information.
I've got all the information. I have all of your appointment slips. Most of them do say March of a year that a term expires. But for a couple of people here, Michelle and trying to think of the other person, there was no end date. Didn't have a year
stay
or a
forever.
month. So she could stay forever.
That's a deal.
Yeah, it's a
So,
lifetime appointment.
as Karen said to me, as long
Aren't
as
you
there's
lucky?
no end date, she is legal to vote.
Good.
So, and I agree with Paul that all the details have not been worked out yet. I can only answer how it pertains to the people on the Conservation Committee at this point specifically.
It might be helpful to just look at those appointment slips and create a single sheet that
I do
shows.
have that.
You have that?
I have that.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Make a
have that. I
copy of
think,
that?
It was
yes,
handed out.
it was
Was it
handed
handed
out.
out?
You may have missed it for.
Was it last week, last
Yes,
month?
Last month, I
Okay,
believe.
send me one
Yeah,
then.
we'll send you. Make a note of that.
So Becky, just for these upcoming ones in July, there's the 30-day process and all that. When do you imagine you'll be posting for those expiring
I don't know
terms?
that. I have submitted what I've submitted for appointing alternates. Karen has that copy of what would be the criteria or the level of experience or interest for appointment or reappointment, member or alternate. Karen has that draft. If your term is expiring in '24, then, or you need to reapply. We will have, I think, 2 members and 2 alternates.
Who are those?
Okay.
Brian and Doug were
Brian and-
reappointed till July 31st of this year?
Yes,
Okay, so coming right up.
coming right up.
Okay.
Michelle would be part of that.
So I thought you said she has no end date. So
She has
she's-
no end date,
so
but she will be included in this to clean up the gap.
Documentation.
Yeah, clean it up, because no one ever put a date on hers.
So
And
ideally,
I think
that-
it's Andy. I think it's Andy as well.
I mean, ideally, so as we don't run into a position where we don't have enough members, it would be ideal to time it so that the select board could approve it like prior to the
I
expirations.
do not know when they're going to start posting.
That would be ideal.
Yes.
Whether or not that's.
Well, yeah, if these guys are expiring July 31st, that's 6 weeks from now.
I know.
Well, is
That
there any-
does present concern, but
Yeah.
Yes.
And is there any reason they
Nothing
can't be
happens
posted
fast.
now? I mean, who has to approve?
Karen,
Well,
Karen
they
has
can
that.
be, but I think the idea was to have a process in
Yep.
place, so I just don't know that that process is going.
Yeah.
Then can we ask the select board to extend those appointments until the process happens?
But the process is known for current ones, isn't it? Don't we know that when a term comes up, there's a 30-day public notice period for people to apply, and then it's all collected at the meeting?
Right.
What do you mean, no, that's the current our process.
That is the.
No, because they already expired and they didn't do it.
No,
Part
they
of-
did.
I believe part of the
expired.
language when this was explained at a select board meeting is that the description has to be approved by the select board before it's posted, or by the administrator before it's posted.
I mean, there is an existing process. The idea was I don't know that that's going to happen before July 31st.
Which is my point exactly,
Yeah.
that if that doesn't happen before July 31st,
think
I don't
if-
want to have to show up, I don't want to show up at the August meeting, be 2 members short.
Right, so I think.
So we
Yes,
should
I
ask the
think as
select
you-
board
yeah.
to extend the appointments from July 31st to some other date.
Or to make the process, just do the, like, how does a new person?
Yeah, but-
They can't.
You are. Yeah. Yeah, you are.
Well, there is that existing process.
Guess
I
so,
think
yes.
The idea was
What do you
to.
got?
But I don't know if it's going to be required to clean up that process and make everyone.
Part of the question, the validity of
Yeah.
my vote.
I know,
Yeah.
well, that's, right, that's the point. That's the point.
So I would recommend Becky as chairman, to request the select board to extend the terms of those who are due to expire in 6 weeks, to some later date, in order to give the select board time to complete its process, which is not likely to be completed by July 31.
What I would suggest is.
Yeah. She has the description. I will remind
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think she has the sensitivity or the time sensitivity in mind, that, hey, this is
Okay.
happening quick.
Well, no,
And
I think, I think she does, so,
that Karen does?
yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
But,
I don't know why.
yeah,
John.
but Paul, if there's not gonna be a process that the select board has finalized by July,
right,
then we need those extensions to keep people active.
agreed,
Yeah, because it has to be, you're right, it has to be posted 30 days.
Yeah.
agreed.
So I will contact Karen again in the morning
Yeah.
and find out where they are in the process.
Good idea.
Yes.
And, red flag her about
Yeah, the dates.
that a further extension may be required.
And I don't know if it pertains to any other committees or commissions. I don't know. I don't know.
Board of Adjustment.
Oh, it does?
No expiration dates or record. I don't think that any of us are serving legally.
Well,
The point is to clean this.
I don't think that's appropriate.
Interrupt again, but to Matt's point.
No, wait, let's, Paul was saying something.
Well, I think we should just limit the conversation to this.
Yes.
That's what
Agreed.
we're talking
Yes.
about.
Agreed.
So,
Yes.
Other commissions, it's really sort of out of the
Yep.
bounds at this
Yep.
point.
So I will follow up with Karen tomorrow about the July 31 red flag and say she can post for conservation. And I will let you all know what that entails.
Let me know too.
I will.
If she's comfortable posting, like if there's a process, then she can just go ahead and post them.
Right. And I will email you all which positions and which positions are up for reappointment or are vacant. Okay. I hope I haven't misspoken anything. It's confusing. Okay. Moving on to the next, as Rob said, he's arranged Brian Holtz, VP from the Society for the Preservation of New Hampshire Forests. Or is it protection, preservation?
What was the last name?
SP. Brian Holtz.
HOLT?
HOLT's.
I'll get it to you.
Possibly to speak at the July meeting. I expressed concern yesterday because we'll have MTI and we might have Prescott. So as soon as I hear from Prescott, we'll either adjust and move Brian to another month and just go with the 2 projects.
I'd
Depending on how
rec-
long
I'd,
this
I'd
thing's
encourage that, because,
Yep.
I mean, we talked in terms of speakers every other month,
Yes,
and,
Yeah.
it sounds like a busy agenda for July.
it does.
So why don't we decide right now?
That's fine with me.
I mean, one reason we pushed it ahead, which was agreed at the Open Space Committee, is this is kind of the core of learning, like the prioritization process that we're trying to grasp right now. So, yeah, we'd like to keep it every other month going forward, but since these are the 3 big land trusts that we would have the opportunity to deal with, that's what the Open Space Committee agreed, but we can certainly try and reschedule.
Let's reschedule. I am
What's,
concerned about time.
yeah, what is the organization he's with?
The
It's Society
S-
for Protection of New Hampshire Forests. It's HOT as in Tom.
HOT?
Z.
Z.
HOTZ.
No, no L.
Hots.
HOTZ. Thanks. Society for Protection of New Hampshire Forests.
So I'll reschedule.
Thank you very much, Rob. Moving on to Open Space, if there's nothing else on the appointments, let's move on to the Open Space Committee. We had an initial meeting yesterday. It was myself, Lise, Rob Wolfchuck, Jeff, Robin, and Heather Dudley Tapman. It was really just a planning session to kind of thrash out how we're going to function, what areas we're going to focus on. The discussion included some aspect of communication, what resources are available in print and online, such as brochures from the Land Trust Alliance or RCD or UNH, ongoing communication, sharing with the community via the website, our website on the town website, the newsletter and Facebook, review of critical properties on the priority list, which was done in 2003. And the criteria for that list, if I may read that briefly, there were 8 parts of that list that ranked spaces, gave points to parcels based on these criteria: the acreage, scenic value, historic value, agricultural use or soils, land cover habitat, greenway linkages, aquifer protection, and wetlands protection. There, it appeared in our discussion, there will be some changes and updates because this is from 2003. So there have been some changes to prime wetlands versus wetlands, more scenic roads in Brentwood. So we would clean up those details and use the criteria. We did not review individual parcels on the priority list. Some preliminary work was done to eliminate parcels that are no longer available, that have gone into development or changed hands. So the list remains. There are so many new technologies and data available as this work is done to coordinate maps and overlay different aspects of protecting land, whether it's wetlands, habitat, greenways, et cetera, that's a new resource for this. And Jeff has offered to be involved with doing that overlay of all the maps. Easements in the past, the question came up about easements. There are, I think, 6 land trusts that serve Brentwood. If you look on the Land Trust Alliance website, they list the land trusts that have or will work on easements in this community.
What 6 are those?
Oh,
Some other time.
it's on the
It's
website.
okay.
It is. Should have brought that with me. In the past, Brentwood has had easements. They've signed easements. And the question is, would Brentwood, the town, be willing to be the easement holder again? If we worked with town council to have a document that was acceptable, the language was acceptable to the town and to the landowner, would the town move forward with that as a possibility? Because a couple of those land trusts, for instance, Rockingham Planning Commission or Rockingham Conservation District, they don't have the money anymore. They're not doing anything. So, and the Nature Conservancy is focusing more on international and national issues. They might not have that much to process an entire easement. So I would like to present this open for discussion to approach the town whether they would be willing to hold an easement, to have a conversation with the select board on that, just as another alternative for anyone in this town who might put property into an easement. Any comments?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a possibility. I don't know that the select board would be inclined to make a specific decision in a general sense like that without looking at individual properties, but that's always a possibility. We could always propose to the select board to consider, hey, here's property X. For all these reasons, we think the town should consider holding this easement.
Self,
So,
and we're the executory
Yeah.
interest.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I agree, it's hypothetical.
yeah.
Case, but
Each of the other land trusts pretty much have a boilerplate document, standard easement document that they use with every easement project. It's what the land trust is responsible for, what the landowner is obligated to do. There's a little room for wiggle room, but there are some standards for any land trust agreement.
Okay, so that's part of the easement is subject to that to the
Yes.
terms of that document?
Yes. We have a standard document from CELT, I believe, for our property, but there were 2 or 3 specific things that the previous owners wanted to include that were negotiated.
Okay.
But it was a standard document.
Yeah, well, most land trustees would have that.
Yes.
And so if the town were ever to become an easement holder, it would have to develop one.
Yes, and that's what we discussed, having a basic document that the town approves using and with.
In the event we
in
ever
the
became
event.
it. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Rob?
So for many years, we had decided not to because an easement is an obligation perpetually for the town, so it's a liability. There's a cost to monitor, there's a potential cost to enforce. And what's been occurring is lands have been turning over. The original owners are very conservation focused. They made it. The next owner, maybe not as much, the third owner. And so there's becoming more and more litigation as people from other areas say, come and buy properties with different designs, trying to maximize it. So what we discussed a little bit is the town has never taken funding at the time of doing an easement to pay for those future obligations. I mean, at some point, we might have to hire people to do easements if we have to. We might have a litigation fund. So as we saw with Fuller, and I think every land trust basically does it now, they create a fund for each property. So we just heard tonight, some of us were at the presentation in East Kingston. Southeast Land Trust was the speaker. They said they figured out how much it costs a year, then they asked for a sum of money times 4% interest that would pay for their costs annually. But they also take money for a legal defense fund and participate in a national insurance program that all the land trusts are. So our conversation was, if the town decides to do it, I think we need to put that infrastructure in place that we've never had.
Sure.
And not leave it to future generations to pay for something that we commit to today. And the easements are very particular for every funding source also, because LCHIP has their requirements, the USDA has their requirements, the IRS, if it's a donation, has requirements. And so it gets to be, do we want to recreate the wheel and incur those legal expenses and take on this perpetual liability, or do we want someone else to?
Well, yeah,
So that's the
all of
discussion,
that
I
would
think.
have to be factored into the presentation to the select board, that, these are the potential risks and potential
Yeah.
costs.
But it was also, because we were discussing at the open space, we have discussions with landowners preliminarily. If we have particular way, or if we really don't want to do it in the town, and we make that decision up front, then we'll be guiding the discussions towards one of the other eligible land trusts. And so I think, so getting some sense from the town and the select board, do we want to start this process and create funds and create legal documents? For us, we're going to create them. All the other entities already have them. They've already worked with LCHIP and came up with an agreement. They've already worked with the Drinking Water Trust Fund. And so my point is, it's a huge undertaking, and whether or not we want to do it, I think we could have some discussions up front before we get into the situation.
Oh, yeah, I mean, again, it's all hypothetical. That if you're going to go down that road, then this is the investment you'd have to make up front before you even started down that road to have all these things in place. And my opinion is the town's got better, can make better use of the resources it has, the financial resources it has, do other things, and let these land trusts do their thing.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we're talking about, because if we make that decision, then when we're meeting with landowners, we're gonna say, the town's not really interested in being the easement holder.
Well, I don't know if we have to say anything, you know,
No.
at this point.
Okay, sounds good.
There are a couple of towns in the area, larger towns, that do their own easements. Dover and Portsmouth in particular do their own easements. They have a standard document that they use.
Okay.
Granted, they are larger.
Yeah, and it probably evolved, you know, historically over a period of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
And it's just, you know, to me, it's a big question for the select board to assess.
yeah,
Do we want to dive into that,
yeah,
to that swimming pool
yeah.
or not?
Well, it's a very good
Not the
discussion.
document. It's the future
Yes.
Right.
assumption of the,
Obligation.
obligation.
Yes.
Right. It's the work and the cost of the work. Yeah, the documents those can easily be drafted.
So that discussion was very helpful. It was very good. It was a very interesting conversation to have at this first planning session, which led to something that Rob said about new owners coming in and not being aware of or wanting to do something on the land that isn't permitted in their document. We talked about the possibility, the plan that we would be in touch with all easement holders in Brentwood on an annual basis, just to thank them for their continuing stewardship of their land, et cetera, et cetera. And if any property has changed hands, and we can find that out weekly from the town clerk's office, to do a letter of introduction to the conservation process in Brentwood. You are a new owner, welcome to Brentwood. We understand you have this easement. We just wanted to make sure you are, you know, a nice, friendly letter. So sort of to prevent anyone trying to move forward with something, just make that connection and develop that relationship. So that's something we talked about as well.
Yeah. Interesting to me that people would, new owners would.
Yeah, I mean,
You would think if you're doing your due diligence, you would know, but
they get it,
having
yeah.
said that communication is
Agreed. Yeah, we should definitely communicate like that, but
Yes.
the owner comes in, you know, if he has half a brain and he's buying title insurance, he knows there's an easement on his land and that easement has terms and conditions.
Right.
So, but yes,
I'm going to confess that we were close friends with the people from whom we purchased our easement. They gave us the document, we were aware of it, but when you're actually owning the property on a day-to-day basis and you pay attention to every detail, it's a different experience to
It is.
understand all of that. So
Yeah.
yes,
good point.
so,
Yeah.
but we want to instigate that process to sort of preempt any abridgments of the terms.
agreed, yeah. I mean,
so-
it's to maintain an open line of communication with any landowner that has a conservation easement, is something we ought to proactively do.
Yeah. And we do that through a lot of monitoring. I know that when we monitor on properties, we're in touch with them. And there've been some excellent conversations with individuals on a one-on-one basis because of that. So, yes, so we would like to follow through in that process. On the committee, Lise, Rob, Jeff Dvorak, sitting in the audience there, Robin Wrighton, and Heather Dudley Tapman, and myself.
It's Heather.
And
right
this
over
is
there.
Heather right here, yes. I invited her after our last meeting. I had a conversation with her about her experience and her background.
I don't know what the process is, but I know that we approved everyone but her at the last meeting, so I don't know if that needs to be
Oh.
done.
Well, we didn't vote anything, so I can do a proposal that we appoint Heather officially to the committee, make a motion that we appoint Heather. We approved that, yes.
Yeah, well, we had you and Lise and Rob and Robin and Jeff.
Yes.
So and we voted to approve them, so
Okay,
I'm
okay.
just following
Thank
procedure
you.
here.
Thank you. So the procedure, I would like a motion to add Heather Dudley Tapman to our Open Space Committee officially. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank goodness we didn't vote on anything.
Aye, sorry.
Just conversation and brainstorming.
We're advisory, that's even more advisory, so.
Yes, yes.
I'm not sure what voting is.
And I'm sorry, it's Heather Dudley,
Tapman, hyphenated.
yeah, Dudley,
Tatman.
T as in Thomas,
Mhm.
AT M-A-N.
Yes.
So it is spelled correctly in the minutes. Thanks.
One of the last things we talked about, and I went through the minutes from our meetings last fall. As you recall, when Mark Young was chair of this committee, the issue of hiring consultants as needed on projects was raised to this board. And we gave Mark the go-ahead, and he sent out an RFP, I think 11 consultants that we might work with. He had response from 2. And we have interviewed 1, but I wanted to raise that again with you tonight, that we might be considering that sooner rather than later. We want to pursue some properties sooner and do some of this work sooner. So I would like approval or a vote from this board to go ahead and pursue consultants for projects and to use the conservation fund for that purpose as needed. We have no specific project in mind because we are just beginning this process. Does that create an issue?
No, I thought we approved
We did,
retaining the consultant we interviewed.
yes. We
Okay.
did, but this has moved it. We didn't have the open space committee before, so the open space committee is coming to us to proceed with this. I just want to make sure we don't lose any steps in this process.
Why wouldn't we do it on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the discussion that we had is, it could be quite early on in the process of talking to landowners, which we're hoping to start doing in the next couple months. And if there's a contract involved, whether we should just go ahead and get that process moving. It sounds like we have a consultant picked out
I think so.
who's provided a contract. And the question is, before we engage costs to hire, for the town to look at the legal contract, this group, we thought it would be good for this group to actually formally approve moving forward with this particular consultant, evaluating the contract. She does want a retainer that would only be used in the case that we use her, but it didn't seem like there was any downside to have someone ready to go, so that if we either got a call incoming or we wanted to go in 2 months, that we wouldn't have to start this process and not have a consultant ready to join us in a meeting.
No, that's fine, but if we already approved, if the commission already approved retaining this consultant, I'm working from memory, because I'd have to go back and look at what we did. I thought we approved.
I think we approved interviewing, but I don't know if.
No, I thought we approved retaining her subject to seeing her, the consulting agreement that she was going to give us. Did that ever come? Does that ring any bells with you?
That sounds vaguely familiar. I
Yeah.
think, I thought that she had a well-defined scope of work, and that included preparation of that contract, I thought.
Yeah.
And she wanted to work on retainer, which I don't have any problem with. I think, but I would rather approve this as needed.
Yeah, in terms, before we spend any money, agreed.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to retrace what we did so that the open space committee isn't being redundant.
Yep.
And I don't want to miss any steps that are important.
Yeah, well, and I just don't remember.
Why don't we just, could
What
you
we
make a
did.
motion tonight?
No, I think what we need to do is I can go back and look at the previous minutes and see what was and wasn't approved, and then I can report back next month to see where we are with that consultant, because I remember we interviewed her, that was all favorable. The consensus was to go forward. As I recall, though, she was going to present us with a consulting
Which
agreement.
Becky has.
Yes, and I think you took a quick look at that.
Yeah, I may have
Yeah.
reviewed it.
Yeah, just quickly.
And
It hasn't gone to the process. Does the town need to review all contracts before
I
a
think they
committee
do.
signs? So
Yeah.
that has to go
Yeah.
to the administrator.
So we got that agreement, but what I don't know is if the commission as a body moved to send it to the select board for their approval.
That's what
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. That's what I don't know.
And in any case, it's probably an agreement that recites, the general nature of the relationship. It doesn't have any specific
No.
scope of work or
No.
statement of work
No,
pending.
no.
And there's no cost to sign it.
Correct.
So what's the downside just to wait another month? Like,
But we don't have to wait another
do
month,
what?
but to do what?
to send the contract to legal to have it approved.
This is the consulting contract we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, if I was doing this, as a consultant myself, it would probably be a good idea to have a, master agreement,
Yeah.
which this probably could serve as, and then attach task orders to
Right,
it.
right.
As we go, and we could approve those individually one by one. So if we do have such an agreement, there's no reason we can't move forward in that fashion, as long as we're voting on
Well,
each
again, yeah.
expenditure as it comes along, and there's a separate task order to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't,
Could be simple, like an email, probably.
Okay.
I wouldn't define what I read as being akin to a master agreement.
Well, you could,
I'm familiar with, but
Yep.
it was basically a pretty short document, as I recall.
you
And
could-
it was simply that we, she'd be available to us from time to time when called upon to do specific work.
Yeah, so I think if it's not signed, we can probably edit it to say, with a sentence or two, to say
Right.
that we view this as an ongoing relationship under retainer, and we will execute, task orders under well-defined scopes of work and budgets approved accordingly.
And so I think we need to resurrect that agreement and take
Okay.
another look at it.
It sounds like an easy thing for a guy like you.
Do you have it?
I don't have it with me tonight.
Okay.
I have it
Do you
online.
have it electronically?
I have it electronically.
Email it to me, please.
Okay. Matt, okay, and then we.
Then I
get
can,
it, And then we'll go forward with.
yeah, and I can make a recommendation
Yeah.
back to you on what
Okay.
we ought to do.
Okay,
And trying to expedite this.
Yep.
I don't necessarily want to wait another month to send it to select board if we need to.
no.
But if you've reviewed it and the commission has reviewed it, have we seen this at a meeting before? I just don't
No, I
remember.
didn't share the contract because it was still not
It
confirmed.
was not complete.
Yes.
Yeah, so we still need to review it as a commission, so I
And we
think,
need to look at the minutes.
Yeah.
too, so,
Yeah.
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 Okay.
So Matt, would you check the minutes?
I'll
and
check
send
the
back?
minutes. And you send me the
I'll send you the
contract.
document, yes. Okay. And as you suggested, maybe a sentence or two to be more specific as to how this might be used.
Right.
Okay.
The
Yes,
only thing I would say on your statement when you were making your proposed thought is using the conservation fund. It seems like we have a lot of money in the budget that normally goes unspent, and I would say the conservation fund should be a source of last resort.
okay,
So
from the
you
budget.
have money in here for consulting or easement monitoring. It looks like from the budget I have, 7,000 for consulting and 3,500 for easement.
What's the date of that?
I thought this came up before and the select board said no.
Yeah.
I thought we'd asked them that. We
we
wanted to
could use
just
the-
make this expenditure from our budget because
We
we
did.
have plenty of money.
We did. I had asked for money for consultant in our budget and it was declined.
No, but
Maybe
the-
if you ask them, they'll.
But the money is somewhat fungible.
It wouldn't be the
but
first time.
The money would be somewhat fungible. It doesn't have to be. Anyways, we can figure that out as we go
We'll figure that
along.
out
I'm
as we
just
go
saying,
along. Yeah,
Usually the conservation fund
Yeah.
has been
Yeah.
the last resort.
well, yes, but the budget's changed. There's not consultant money. Okay. So this
Yeah.
is a good, very lengthy discussion, about an hour and a half, but a lot of ground was covered and I think it
Yeah.
was, worked out a lot of good ideas. So, yes, so thanks to everyone for being part of that. We've scheduled the next meeting for June 28 at 4 PM here. Just to let you know, this is a 2-week interval. We wanted to keep this moving forward. Pickpocket Dam update very quickly. The grant was not funded for Exeter to remove Pickpocket Dam.
It wasn't.
It wasn't funded. It was, Karen presented at the last select board meeting, there was no particular element of the grant that was negative or was served against their application. It was the overwhelming number of applications for the amount of money that was available. At least that's what was said at the
okay.
select board. Everyone knew there was more money available. So many organizations applied. It was just an abundance of requests. My understanding is that Exeter Select Board will vote to approve the removal of a dam by whatever means. I don't know if that meeting has taken place yet or if it's coming up. The River Committee was going to advise that, so that's still something they probably will pursue. I know that Robert Span's group is still actively, they were elated that the grant was not funded, and they're still going to be working towards what happens next. The letter that we requested was sent by Karen Clement to Russ Dean in Exeter that we wanted open channels of communication between the two towns as this moved forward, whether or not they were funded. We wanted communication to continue. So Karen Clement and Jen Jones met with Russ Dean, I think about 2 weeks ago, to at least keep the communication flowing.
Okay, good.
New business. As far as I know, there are no new easement inquiries that came to us. The other item in your packet, one of the last items, if I can move this forward pretty quickly, it's the time of year when the capital improvement budget process begins again. You have the letter that I received. The deadline for all committees and departments to submit any capital requests of $10,000 or more is June 26th. So I've included the letter, the current capital improvement chart, which shows departments and what they've asked for year 25 through 29. There are some gaps in here because there are things that weren't sure as far as conservation. Our $3 million bond was split pretty much evenly over a 5-year period. There was no way to predict how that money would be allocated. So that can stay this. It may change now that we have one tranche of this $250,000 committed. I know what will be added to this. The municipal complex will be added to this, so I'm sure every department and group is going to do a little adjustment. And I was coming to you to ask if there's anything you can foresee that conservation in a capital request for $10,000 or more is anything we need to consider. I hope not.
You know how much I like to spend money.
Yeah. But I thought I'd ask in case something was lurking in the back of someone's mind about wanting to spend for our own.
Building meeting or something.
Yeah.
Something nice.
Yeah. So unless we want to buy a vehicle or a mower or something, I see nothing in here that we will change. We'll just have them adjust the 5-year use of the $3 million bond. So I just wanted you to be informed that this will be submitted by June 26th. Unless there are any questions. Okay. Energy and Efficiency Committee, Matt.
Yeah, so there's been, the Energy and Efficiency Committee has been in existence now for 2 years. And at the time it was formed, there was high interest in having a member of the Conservation Commission serve on that committee. I have been that member for the last 2 years, and I'll be stepping down in the next couple of months. And so I recommended to the chairman that I would come to the Conservation Commission and ask if there's someone interested in replacing me, so then he could forward that person's interest onto the select board. So this is the committee that put together the
Community power.
yeah, the community power proposal that was approved at town meeting. We're engaged in energy audits of our town buildings, and it's been a productive group, and they do a lot of good work. If you have an interest in those things, then I'd be happy to submit your name as someone interested. You can either let me know now or let me know separately. They meet once a month on Mondays typically, but we're not meeting. We just had our June meeting. We're not meeting in July, and possibly not meeting in August, only because things are just kind of on hold until the fall. Rick Lebrecht is the chairman of that committee, good guy. And so, see, he has agreed to take part of the summer off, right? But no, so, you know, if you're interested, let me know.
Yep. I don't know if they have to go through the statement of interest process. Or do they
I
go
don't know,
right through
I
the-
don't know how that, whether that applies to them,
Okay.
because, you know, they're not as formal a group as, say, we are.
Plus,
But-
this is an appointment from the Concom. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
it's not a applying for a
Okay.
position.
Yeah, it's not applying for a new, it's just
It's an assignment.
to
so to speak.
replace, the current
Okay.
Concom person with someone else from Concom.
So let Matt know if any of you have an interest in doing that.
Yeah, and I'd encourage all of you to think about it, because it's been worthwhile. It's, you know, it's been a productive group, and it's a good group to work with.
Okay. Last on your packet is this is the list that was discussed, or ideas that were discussed when Glenn Greenwood presented wetlands mitigation, wetlands guidelines on May 2 to the Joint Planning Board Conservation Commission. He referenced this document, and it's sort of a shovel-ready kind of list of the kinds of projects that would be viewed positively, that we should have some of these in our hip pockets. So should an issue come up where there's a developer funds put some money into the mitigation fund, we can take advantage of that for local purposes. So take a look at that. I wanted you to be familiar with some of the ideas. I do have a report back at home that's about 20 pages of the projects they specifically funded over the last 5 years. So it gives more detail on that, but I wanted to give you an overview of what are the possibilities.
That's this one?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
this one from DES.
That would be interesting if we could somehow overlay these criteria with potential projects we may want to look at in town to conserve, which is basically how this fund has been used a lot. Like, it helped pay for the Wilson easement along the Exeter River.
Okay.
So other towns have used it to take that money, buy an easement.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it has to meet the wetlands
yes.
mitigation
Yeah.
type of, so, I don't know how to do that, but it'd kind of be interesting.
Well, maybe you and I can talk about some of that and see what we can come up with. Okay? No, never volunteer. Oh, yeah. For the 1,000-year flood, yes. Yeah. Okay, under other business, our next meeting is July 10. We aren't going to skip a month. And
I was just kidding,
Are you sure?
mostly.
Oh, I don't think we're going to skip a month, no. We've got a couple of things on the docket already. So there's no non-public, so are there any other topics any of you have? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What's the construction right next to Split Rock?
Oh, that's right, sorry,
No,
I
I
should have
don't know
paid
about
attention to
construction,
that.
that's the Martin problem.
Yeah, I think it's a driveway.
So, maybe you would know that.
Well, he's been knocking down trees. Yeah. So you know how it is, like,
Thank you, Brian.
I'm here, like,
It
it
is
is
confusing, this whole appointment and reappointment.
I'm here.
Of George? He was great. Yeah, very good. I was really impressed with his experience and his whole background story.
Wonderful, wonderful. How long have you been
Yeah,
there?
it's not here yet.
Wonderful.
Yeah, no.
I didn't know he lived down the street. from me.
Wow, that is great. You send a postcard to us?
Yeah, great guy.
He's knocking down all
I
these.
felt a little embarrassed because he knew me.
How do we turn this off?
Does he want, but don't, well, that's what I'm saying, so he like keeps piling up all these.
Yeah, and I mean, I remembered him, I remembered his face, I just didn't remember his name.
So it's just, he's gonna make it.
It could be, he
That's
has
what I-
plenty of
But
frontage.
the thing
He
is,
has plenty of frontage.
I think he's gonna ask forgiveness, not permission, is my problem.
Oh, yeah.
Cause I called up Kip and said, is there
Forestry,
anything?
or is it just land clearing? 'Cause
No,
you
he's
don't
knocking
need
down trees, he has a,
but you don't
like
need
a,
a permit.
to knock down trees on
No.
your own land.
No.
But does he
It's
have,
totally
how
legal.
much frontage do you have to have on the
200 feet of frontage.
No, how much feet do you have to have between your pile of mess, like his piles of dirt that he's just. Yeah, to the road. There's a, what's it, 15 feet? Is it 25? I think it's 25.
Town right away. The town
Yeah,
is
a 25.
right of way, but I
Yeah,
don't know
can
if
you
they
still
have-
pile stuff on there?
It's wherever his land.
Yeah, I think
markers
it's,
are. Some
it's
people's
25.
We're gonna lock up.
It's not that far.
I'm pretty sure it's 25 from the center.
It's
of the
about
road.
8 feet from the road.
Yeah,
The
but
piles
it
are
would be
good.
6 feet from the edge of the road. 8 feet. That's not 25 feet from the edge of the road.
No, it's from the center. And that's about.
It's pretty close to the edge of the road right now.
Wait or something.
Did we stop?